Okay, so tangent and cotangent functions, we're going to put our 4 quarter turns from our unit circle on here. So 1, 0 for 0 radians. At pi over 2, we have 0, 1. At pi, we have -1, 0, coordinate -1, 0. And at 3 pi over 2, we have 0, -1. All right, so I'm going to list out what tangent is at each of those values. So tangent of 0 radians, remember tangent is equal, tangent of theta equals sine of theta over cosine of theta. So we're going to look at our sine value, which is our y value, and our cosine value, which is our x value. So we're doing y over x, which gives me 0 over 1. And 0 over 1 is equal to 0. So this point is 0, 0. We're good so far? Okay, and then we just do every quarter turn as we go, right? So tangent of pi over 2 is what? Y over x, which is 1 over 0, which is undefined. Which means I have a vertical asymptote at x equals pi over 2. Let's go ahead and plot that. Where else would I have a vertical asymptote at? Where else is my cosine going to be equal to 0? Three pi over 2. So you'll notice I skipped pi, but we'll go back and do that in a second. I just want to make sure we notice what our vertical asymptotes are. And I'm going to plot that vertical asymptote as well. And this is going to repeat. So if I were to go around 2 more quarter turns, in other words, another half turn, so we go pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2, or if I were to go the opposite direction, if I go in the negative direction to 3 pi over 2, that's a quarter turn down, so that's negative pi over 2. So that's all my vertical asymptotes. I know I have a point at 0, 0. Let's find the one that we skipped over. So we did tangent of 0. We did pi over 2. We skipped pi and we went to 3 pi over 2. So let's go back and do tangent of pi. All right, y over x is going to be 0 over -1. What is 0 over -1? 0. So then we get another point at pi 0. what on earth do I graph? Because I only have one point, we don't know what goes up and what goes down. So we're going to find some other values. What tangent value would be a good one to use that is in quadrant 1? Tangent of pi over 4. Pi over 4 is what type of triangle? 45, 45, 90. If I draw it straight down, it's 45, 45, 90, right? So the coordinate at pi over 4 is what? Root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. Why is that a wonderful example or a wonderful one to use for tangent? Because it's 1. Yeah, anything over itself is equal to 1. So we're going to do some other values besides my quarter turns. So in sine, cosine, secant, cosecant, all of those, you can just do your quarter turns and figure out what values to plot. But on tangent, since I only have these middle values, I want to figure out what my tangent function is going to look like. So tangent of pi over 4, we know that's root 2 over 2 over root 2 over 2, which equals 1. So this is pi over 4, 1. All right. Pi over 4 is in between 0 and pi over 2. Now, on your homework, this is something that I saw a lot. You would plot a point, but not necessarily mark off the x value. It makes it a lot easier if you're marking off your x values of your increments. Because when you have a pi over 6 increment, let's see, from worksheet 9, there were a lot of you on number 12 that I said, or maybe 6 or 12, I said write in increments of pi over 6, which means you need to split up your x-axis to pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6. So there should be 2 markings you do between 0 and 2 pi. So on this one, we only have 1 because it's halfway in between. So pi over 4, 1 is right here. What is the tangent of, let's see, let's do negative pi over 4, which is right here. Negative pi over 4. Which means I would go down to negative pi over 4. Is tangent positive or negative in quadrant 4? Negative. Because my x value is positive and my y value is negative. So I'm going to do a negative over a positive, which equals negative 1. So this is negative pi over 4, negative 1. And remember, your graph is still gravitating toward your asymptotes, so this is going to look very similar to when we do our cubic functions. So this is going to go up and to the right, gravitate toward that asymptote, down and to the left, and then all of my values are repeated because tangent of 3 pi over 4 is also going to be negative 1. Tangent of 5 pi over 4 is also going to be positive 1. So negative 1, positive 1, this same graph or same piece is just repeated. So and we're going to repeat that piece all the way across. And that is the graph of tangent of x. Questions? All right, then we do cotangent. Very similar. I'm still going to use those quarter turns, so let me go ahead and write all of these in order. So I have, well, first of all, I need to write the correct term down, right? Cotangent, C-O-T, of 0, cotangent of pi over 4. Remember, that's one of my quarter terms. Cotangent of pi over 2. I'm putting them all in order this time so that we can see what our pattern looks like. Cotangent of 3 pi over 4. That's one of our, not quarter turns, I said quarter turns. That's an eighth away around. Let's see what comes after 3 pi over 4. Pi, good. And you might keep going, but you might not have to. So let's start there. I don't think we went higher. We did 3 pi over 2. Let's take a look at this. Okay, cotangent of 0. So remember, cotangent is going to be cosine over sine. So that's x over y. So my x value of my unit circle at 0, if I do x over y, that gives me 1 over 0, which is, oh, why did I do that? 1 over 0, which is what? Undefined. So I have a vertical asymptote at x equals 0. Where else do I have a vertical asymptote at? Pi. Very good. So if you go up and look here, where else is x over y equal to something over 0? At pi, negative 1 over 0. So pi is negative 1 over 0, which is undefined. So I have a vertical asymptote at x equals pi as well. And then all these in between are going to give me values. These are just more spaced out because we're doing eighth turns around the circle as well. All right, so let's graph those vertical asymptotes. Which means there would also be one at 2 pi if there's one at 0, and 3 pi if there's one at pi, and negative pi. All right, we'll do pi over 4, pi over 2, and then 3 pi over 4. So pi over 4, x over y is going to give me what? 1. Pi over 2, x over y is going to give me 0. And 3 pi over 4, I guess I should have wrote that down. Negative root 2 over 2 over positive root 2 over 2 is negative 1. So positive 1, 0, negative 1. Sorry, I should have had that higher up. Okay. Okay. Cotangent of pi over 4 is 1. So we're going to plot that point at pi over 4, 1. Pi over 2, 0. And 3 pi over 4, negative 1. So it's very, very similar. It just looks as if we reflected over x equals like pi over 2 or something. So it's just going the opposite directions. And we know this side would be down here and coming from up here. So that would keep going. This would keep going, but you don't need to have that in. All right. Let's see.